Welcome back to YAFFEE Live. I am Tennessee's voice of reason, Chattanooga's conservative conscience. Glad you're joining the show today. We got to recap the legislative session, the General Assembly. It ended this week a little bit earlier than originally thought, mostly because they got a trial coming up of a former state speaker of the House. So we'll get the recap of the session right now with Brandon Lewis. He is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. As you know, read that at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, how are you, my friend?
Fantastic. Just watching it rain.
I got it. I mean, I'm glad it's not severe or anything, but I could use some more sunshine. I just have to say that. It's all good. So before we get into some of the stories you got on your site today, I really just wanted to get maybe a grade from you on the session this year. I am going to guess that you would give them a C, maybe a D. You're a tough grader, but what are your thoughts overall?
Well, we had some wins. We have a bill that was passed to ensure the governor couldn't act unconstitutionally during states of emergency. He's not going to sign it into law, which, you would think we would get an apology for COVID, but I guess, some folks double down. We had probably the most proactive illegal immigration bill that has passed. It's not really fixing the problem, but it does create a crime of human smuggling aimed at preventing illegals from being victims of human trafficking in Tennessee. Also one to hold NGOs accountable if an illegal alien is provided housing and then they harm another Tennessee resident. Keeping illegal aliens from being able to register to vote in Tennessee. Segregating Tennessee's bathrooms.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think you'd have to do that. And we have one increasing the penalty of abuse of kids 9 to 17 from a misdemeanor to a felony. So those are, 6 wins, I think, that we can look at as conservatives and say that was a good thing.
So you almost got out of it, but do you have a grade, like a letter grade, maybe a C?
Well, I will. Well, here's the marks against them. So They passed some bills. These are probably the worst. They passed these bills to strip all the local GOPs of their ability to select candidates like they want to, and I think that's stomping all over freedom of association. Private political parties are private organizations; they're not government entities. But the real kick in the pants is that the bill that would have closed the primaries to keep Democrats from voting in Republican primaries, which is the chief reason many people advocate for a caucus over a primary, that bill was killed. I mean, nobody even gave it a second. It died in committee. We've been trying to close the primaries for a decade. We had another one. The Trump Act was the best preventative illegal immigration bill in the session, and they got one no vote, and then a bunch of people didn't show up, and then the Republicans voted with the Democrats to kill it. Transporting illegal aliens to sanctuary states didn't make it. It was killed as well, and probably the biggest one that disappointed me was Bo Watson's bill that would prevent taxpayers from funding illegal alien education, which is about a 90+% issue with GOP primary voters, and it was put behind the budget because they're afraid they might lose some federal money. And, of course, with the federal strings come all kinds of bad decision-making, and this is probably a perfect poster child for it.
Yeah, I'm going to speak with Bo Watson later on in the show. I want to ask him, how disappointed he is that wasn't able to make it through. Yeah, I heard that same kind of excuse that, they're worried they might lose some federal funding. I didn't really understand that because Trump's in office. I can't imagine the Trump administration would start withholding funding over that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Do you think?
They submitted a letter at the end of the process, which begs the question to me. Surely somebody could have foreseen that being a potential issue, in which case the letter should have been sent, way before session was ever started, if that's a consideration, not after the thing's been put behind the budget in the last minute to see if they can get an opinion. So I think a little bit of planning might have helped that, but in the end, that bill barely made it through the chambers. I mean, it was probably the perfect barometer of how far afield the folks are in Nashville from their position, their constituents' positions back in the district.
Yeah, I think you're right. I tend to think, maybe you agree or disagree, I just tend to think that was kind of an excuse. Like they were just trying to find a reason maybe not to actually pass it because of some of the pushback. I don't know. Because to me, like if, it'd be a little bit different if Biden were president, but I mean, with Trump president right now and they want it, the whole point of the bill was to get it to go to the Supreme Court and change Supreme Court precedent. I mean, doesn't it seem like kind of a lazy excuse not to pass that bill?
I don't know if it's an excuse or it's intentional. It's just hard to know up there. I mean, there's so little, there's just not a lot of transparency and leadership. They say one thing and then they vote in a different direction. So like even their outward messaging doesn't match anything that they tell you. So, you're kind of left in the dark as you watch the legislature do these things that just completely flies in the face. And on another note, I'm actually about to pay for a poll that's going to go out to Hamilton County Republican primary voters, the ones that consistently show up, asking them two questions. The first is, do you think taxpayers should fund illegal alien education? I think the answers will be like 90-some-odd% no. And then would you vote for a candidate if you had known that they supported it? Yes or no? And I bet that'll be about 75%. That'll say no, I wouldn't vote for him in the primary. So I'm hoping to take that data to the school board, and I hope that Bo Watson's bill is successful the next time around.
Speaking with Brandon Lewis, he's the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Now, you had mentioned this other bill as well that Governor Bill Lee is not going to sign, has to do with protecting constitutional rights of Tennesseans. Talk about specifically what's in that bill and talk about why the governor doesn't want to sign it.
Well, what specifically is in the bill is basically like it doesn't matter how bad the quote-unquote emergency is, whether it's manufactured or real, is that you cannot go against your oath of office, which is what Bill did during COVID. You can't go against your oath of office and deprive Tennesseans of their constitutionally guaranteed rights, even if there is an emergency, which you would think people would know that. But, we saw during COVID, I mean, he never had the constitutional authority to cancel Thanksgiving and tell people they couldn't gather. He never had the constitutional authority to shut down this business and leave this other business over, or to push masks and vaccines and things that with promises that later turned out to be untrue and in many cases harmful. And so this entire bill is really as a result of watching a lack of leadership and constitutional moorings during 2020 and 2021 in Tennessee. And it's, just to put something else in place to prevent that from happening in the future if we hire, if we end up electing another weak Republican as governor.
Yeah, it's interesting because you kind of make the point there that he's refusing to sign it, but he really shouldn't have to anyway, because what he's doing or what he did at the time went against the Constitution.
Well, if we had a legislature that would have stood up for its own rights as a separate branch of government instead of just rolling over to the executive, and that's what Congress tends to do. It's what our legislature tends to do. It used to not be that way. It was not part of the American dynamic. Was not supposed to be led by the executive. It was supposed to be led by the gathering bodies. But the leadership has just not been there. And so hopefully with the upcoming governor's race, I'm going up to D.C. next week. I'm going to do one interview with a candidate and have a conversation with another, and
cool.
Maybe visit with some folks. So hopefully we can get some answers to some of these questions for folks that are looking at the 2026 governor's race.
Very interesting. I mean, no one's officially announced they're running, right? Am I wrong on that?
John Rose is official. He's out there.
Oh, okay.
Marsha Blackburn has not made an official announcement, and to my knowledge, nobody else has either. So we'll see. As these official announcements start coming down. Typically, people don't want to do interviews about their candidacy until they've declared.
Yeah. So
we'll try to get the ones that are already declared on record so that folks will know, and then I'll work on the rest of them as we have time.
Speaking with Brandon Lewis, he's the founder of the Tennessee Conservative, which, of course, you can read at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. By the way, it looks like you have some pretty good interviews on your site with some state lawmakers kind of recapping the session.
Yeah, it was interesting, having a reporter up there, thanks to the support of our subscribers and everybody out there who gives. I appreciate you. We were able to send somebody up there, and so we were really able to get a lot more in-depth interviews than we have in the past, and I'm hopeful we can do that again next session, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Gotta ask, other than the bill we talked about with illegal immigration, what would be one thing that you really wanted to get passed that didn't pass? Would it be the one that Governor Billy, that passed, but Governor Billy isn't signing it? I mean, is there anything else that you really wish would have passed that didn't make it?
Well, the only one that just to me, I do, is the whole deal about closing the primaries. I mean, it's one thing if you don't close the primaries, but to not close the primaries and then take away the caucus ability of counties. I mean, it's like, can you tell me that you need Democrats to get elected any other way that's more plain than when your whole Republican Party issues a resolution saying we don't like this bill and you pass it anyway, and then everybody passes a resolution saying to close the primaries and that one gets killed. And so I think that is just demonstrative of how big of a gap there is between the conservative grassroots in our state and leadership. Like they're just completely unresponsive, and unless there's a sea change, which I believe there's a good opportunity for one in 2026, I don't know that we're going to see that change much.
Yeah, that's another one that I would assume the majority of voters would want, at least Republican voters. I don't know if you've ever polled that, but
yes, it's like another 90% issue. It's not even close, and that's the thing that shocks me. It's not like, I mean, they take something like the school vouchers, which were kind of a split issue, and they'll shove it down, the electorate's throat. Meanwhile, things that are 90% issues, they repeatedly kill, and so you can just see in the polling and in the surveys, like it's two different parties. It's the one that goes to vote, and then it's the one that governs. They're just quite far apart from one another.
Very frustrating. Brandon Lewis, he's the founder of the Tennessee Conservative. You can read that stuff every day, TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, I always appreciate it. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, buddy. Stay dry.
All right, I will try.